I'm Tina-Desiree reporting for Status Coup. Today I'm speaking with an Amazon worker who is going to tell us about his story about working at a New England warehouse at the start of the pandemic. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So you recently contacted us because Jordan had been on the Hill talking about a certain worker that had passed away, Push On. And you had some similar experiences that you wanted to add to the story. So walk us through how you first got your job there at Amazon.
So this was in the beginning of the pandemic. I was looking for a job. I just got home from school. So this was about mid to late April, and then I found Amazon was hiring while everything else was shutting down. So I applied, and then within a couple weeks, you go to an offsite. It was usually at like a hotel or something, or some venue, where they ask what shift you are, get like your birth certificate, random, job stuff. And then you pick your shift, and then you show up at your start date. And it was pretty much that simple. There's no interview, which I was kind of shocked by. I don't know if that's what they do normally or if that's just how it is. I have no idea. But so I started in early May, and I lasted until late June, early July.
So I wanted to ask you, in the course of that, this was when we knew that COVID was a really serious danger. We knew that we had to have some sort of PPE if we wanted to stay protected. In many cities, the government was closing and locking down certain activities to try to prevent the spread of the virus. What kind of PPE did Amazon supply to their workers at that moment?
So you had your normal PPE was like gloves, but it wasn't like surgical gloves. It was like working gloves that you needed. You had like some straps for you're holding your scanner, and then they also gave you a blue surgical mask. Okay,
so now and then the surgical gloves would be the plastic disposable ones, but they gave you worker gloves.
It was almost like gardener gloves. Because like you use like you probably get like a paper cut if you didn't have those ones.
I see.
You have the boxes and stuff.
So we're not clear that that's really standard as far as trying to prevent spread of virus inside the warehouse. And now the scanners, you wouldn't keep the same scanner every day. Other workers would be using those, right?
Yeah. So when you get on your shift, you would get a scanner, and you would be advised to wipe it down. And then when you get off your shift, you were advised to wipe it down for the next person. But when you start your shift, there's a 3 to 4 questionnaire that they would give you, and it would be questions like, are you and all the people around you wearing their masks like over their nose and over their mouth? Yes or no. It would be like, are you able to maintain a 6 feet distance between your workers? Yes or no, and stuff like that. And this occurred every day, and like for the most part, it was always the same question. Like randomly, they would be kind of like. Actually, at first it wasn't everyone. It was like randomly popped up, so everyone wouldn't answer. But eventually they switched it to whenever you logged in, everyone would have that survey.
Right. So this was more or less self-reporting. So Amazon at this point wasn't necessarily enforcing that everybody follow these restrictions and rules, but they were asking that you self-reported that you did. I'm advising you to clean your hand scanner for the next guy, but nobody was really following up whether that was happening or not.
There were people standing around, like they would kind of like, if they noticed you didn't, they would most likely like, hey, like make sure you do that. But I'm sure some people slipped through the cracks. Mm-hmm. But with the survey, like one morning, I walked down, and keep in mind, not everyone, most of the people that were working there either spoke broken English or didn't speak English at all.
Right.
And one thing I actually just thought of was that I think all the scanners were in English.
That's important. If English is your second language and you're talking about really important things that you have to do in order to prevent the spread of the virus, that's a really important detail. They should have been providing that in Spanish and other languages if that's the case, if they really want to be clear about the employees understanding the dangers.
Yeah, the only reason I think it's only English is because sometimes I would have a question and I would try to ask another employee that either like I wasn't able to communicate, and they would sometimes try to understand my problem and then just kind of like point through where to go on my scanner.
Okay.
So I don't think they actually understood what was going on. They just knew it from muscle memory. I don't know.
So what were you came in one day and things had changed though. What was the change?
So I came in one morning and the lady on the intercom went over and was like, when this question pops up, answer it this way. And she wasn't like telling people, make sure to do your survey. It was make sure to answer your survey this way.
Wow.
And it really stood out to me. Like I could see, like I was kind of looking past all like the guidelines with like distancing because it was just so hard. It was just my job. Like I was just trying to do what I was doing. But when I heard that, I was like, I know what that is, and I don't know if everyone here does.
Yeah, so she's pretty much instructing the employees to answer the questions a certain way. So that tells us that perhaps people had been honest about not feeling safe in the warehouse or had been honest about not following through on the directions they were being given, which was going to open them up for liability perhaps.
Yeah, because I would talk to some of the employees when I had time and when we could understand each other. And like one guy I was talking to, he was like, I think Amazon's in real big trouble. That's why they're doing all this survey stuff to try to back up that they,
Right.
were trying their best because employees are answering this certain way. In reality, like they were probably trying to fudge it.
Right. So if you did, and also just to clarify, if you didn't answer these questions on the hand scanner, you couldn't log into work.
Correct.
Okay, so that's an important piece of the puzzle. Now, at what point did you start to become aware or suspicious of the fact that there were people that were testing positive for COVID-19 inside the warehouse?
So we would get text messages. It really was like every 3 to 4 days we would get a text, but it would say we have an additional case, or it would say we have additional cases. I don't know of anyone that tested positive. I don't know if I had it. You don't know if you were working with that person, when they worked. I don't know how they tracked that. Maybe there was a way to do it, but I had never been approached that I was in contact with someone, which if there were that many cases in that short amount of time, I find it hard to believe that I wasn't.
Right. No, I mean, it's possible that you were exposed to the virus and they didn't even let you know. So they would say cases, but they didn't really tell you how many, who they were, where they had been in the warehouse. Do you feel like they had been contact tracing? Because it doesn't sound like they were. Or if they were, they weren't telling the employees.
There's only one way I can see them contact tracing is because like mostly everyone's kind of on the move. Like you're not normally at one spot at one time.
Right.
So the only way that I could see it is like if someone tested positive, they could see who else was scanning in that certain lane and then contact them. That's like the only way that I could actually see it happening. I have no idea if they were actually doing that.
Okay.
Because I didn't really know anyone at work. No one really was like friends. At least I wasn't friends with anyone.
What other precautions did they take? Social distancing wise, was it possible to keep 6 feet away at all times?
No, not at all. They tried. This wasn't a thing when I first got there, but I think within the first like maybe 2 to 3 weeks, they implemented almost like barriers. So there was, in my warehouse, there was lanes A through J, A, B, C, D, E, F, H, or A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H,
Right.
J. There was no I. And then, so on each side of the lane, there was 84 pallets. And so when they put up the dividers, the goal was that you would stand in between dividers that had 9 pallets behind you. So when boxes were pushed down, you would grab the ones that had your number and scan them and put them on the pallet. So you didn't have to go beyond the barriers. You wouldn't have to be close with anyone. The problem with that is that that's banking on every lane having the right amount of people at any given moment. And it's also banking on, them being able to handle the shipment that comes in at that time, because the conveyor like stretched out like 30 yards, and it would sometimes reach like 3 or 4 feet high on top of that, the entire length of the conveyor. So it's hundreds and hundreds of boxes, and it's 5 or 6 people per side. So
Wow. Okay.
it takes a while to get that down. So they would start pulling people from other parts of the warehouse to get that wall down. And then before you know it, another lane's doing the same exact thing. So it's just a constant, it never stops. That's why it's impossible So you would have like 10 people on one side of the lane, all walking around doing their job, not staying within the barriers because they need to get the lane down. They need to get the policy.
Wow. So that, yeah, definitely not maintaining 6 feet. Let me ask you this. Did they take into account COVID-19 on the productivity rates? I know Amazon scores their workers on maintaining a certain level of productivity throughout the day, and they track that. Did they adjust that at all?
I don't know of any of that. All I know is that they would track your productivity, but I never had a problem with it. I don't know anyone that did. And if like you weren't using your scanner, a manager would make sure that you scanned their badge, so it would tell the system that, hey, like this person's off their scanner, so it's okay if they're not, you don't see any activity. I don't know of anything other than that though.
Okay, so but if you were not having activity and you went to the manager a lot, I would imagine that they would frown upon that.
Well, it would normally be the manager coming up to you. The manager coming up to you would be like, hey, I need you to do this. Here's my badge.
Okay. So what other things did you witness in that period of time that you thought were questionable?
Well, there was no testing. That was one of the first things I asked when I got the job. Like, I did like a tour around the facility. I asked if they did testing. They didn't do it. And they didn't do it up until I left. I don't know if they're doing it at all. I don't know if they did it at all. They would check your temperature when you walked in. I don't know if I think that started while I was working, not before. So that wasn't like an immediate thing. But I don't know how much I buy the temperature thing, because if you're asymptomatic, like what's the purpose?
Right.
And I would talk to some of the employees about that, and they're like, yeah, like this is kind of like what is this? They would try like 1-lane staircases. So you can go to work for like 4 hours and be around hundreds of people, but when you go up the staircase, they're like really actually yelling at people if they come too close.
Okay. So now they weren't testing, but somehow they knew people were contacting the virus. My guess would be then they were getting that information from the employee taking a test outside of work.
Yeah, that's the only way. They must have got it.
So who knows? Yeah. So obviously they're not providing testing. They found out this guy, he took a test someplace off site and he's sick. So these were people that definitely had symptoms. And we have no idea who they had been in touch with throughout the day inside that warehouse. So that's obviously, a little bit hazard area, in my opinion. Did they give you guys hazard pay for any of that?
Yeah, we were receiving an extra $2. So I was making $17 an hour, and for like a college kid, I mean, that's pretty solid. Yeah, I mean, it was normally 15, so we got $2. It kept getting extended. It was supposed to be like ending one date, and then it would just get bumped up 2 months. So they were paying it for sure.
And now, do you know if that was the case of all the warehouses? Because I'm not sure that it is or it isn't. I'd be curious to know.
I do not know that.
Okay. So now, why did you leave this job? Obviously it was not a safe environment. Is that what made you decide to leave, or was there something else that compelled you?
It was kind of a multitude of things. I didn't really want to be there anymore. I was like, I wanted to do other things in the short summer that I had, and I also was just worried about bringing COVID home to like my dad.
Right.
Like, because I wasn't worried about it getting myself, but like, bringing it home to a family member would really, really suck. So it was that. I had made a decent amount of money while I was there, so I was kind of just okay. Like, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. Like, this is only getting creepier. I would rather just not be there.
Right. So, in your opinion, just in closing, then the worst parts of this were lack of PPE, no real testing being done. And the most creepiest of all was when they started telling workers how to answer those questions without giving them the agency to do that on their own. Is there anything you would add to that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was like the questionnaire situation where they told people how to answer it. The distancing is just really impossible. I don't know how they contact trace. I mean, I could see how if they did it, but I don't know if they actually did it because I never received anything. The fact that so we would normally get the text messages, and then one day they changed it to the app that everyone has, or you're supposed to have.
Right.
So I don't know how often people check that. I never checked it. It just seemed like that was kind of a move to be less communicative, because I like the text come right up on your phone. You don't have to check an app, you just see it. But yeah, for sure the questionnaire, that's what kind of raised my eyebrows the most of everything.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Well, thanks for talking to us. We appreciate that, and stay safe.
Of course, you too. Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.